topic for this panel is going to be the role of technology in Indian BFSI industry, that is banking, finance services, and insurance industry. So our panelists, I'm going to call you all. Please come on stage and let's begin with this interesting panel like the lunch was. So the first speaker today is Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Chief Executive Officer, Blockstack. Mr. Prasanna. The second person is Sudarshan Pillai, AVP Infosec, LIC Mutual Fund. The third person on the panel today is Mr. Dipesh Karki, co-founder and CTO, London Club. And our last panelist is Mr. Sumoth, Vice President and Head Digital, Federal Bank. Can I have a huge round of applause for all of them? So Mr. Prasanna is going to be the moderator for this panel. Are you ready, Mr. Prasanna? Yeah, I'll give you a mic as well. But did you enjoy the lunch? What was the favorite dish?
I think there were so many dishes, right?
Okay. I think the dessert was more interesting, right? Okay. So all the best to all the panelists. Let's keep this going. Yeah.
Yeah, so very good afternoon. Wonderful lunch as told by our friend. So coming back, so today we are going to discuss about the role of technology and how the technology is really path-breaking, accelerating agent for banks, customers, various sectors out there. And we'll see what are those benefits of new age technologies. We'll talk about some of those use cases or some of the challenges, the role of every individual out there in every organization, how to adopt technologies. Because today, I think if you don't adopt technology, I think you will be wiped out. If you go back in typically in banking ecosystem way back in 2000 or in the 1990s, typically the banking was purely operated on a branch model, so without any internet, right? That is how we have seen early 1995 when internet came into our life. We have seen rise of internet banking in early 2000, 2005, followed by mobile banking. And when we saw in 2008 rise of smartphones with Android and iOS, we have seen mobile banking. And typically, while we adopt any of those new tech, a regulator always came in and supported or guided how do we adopt in a better way so that customer interest, data security, integrity is well taken care. But in the last 6-7 years, it was a path-breaking journey for most of the entities. Even customer is changing, and ever-changing customer is asking banks or service providers, governments to change or adopt new technology. That's what we have seen. Example, say, if you say earlier it was a traditional banking, followed by some kind of a digital banking these days, right? Which everybody is carrying a mobile phone or doing those transactions on a Google Pay, Phone Pay. Even if you want a loan, you go on to some of those websites, check which is the best bank which is providing loan or a car loan and so on. So this digital banking is now becoming traditional banking. So what next, right? So what next? Maybe intelligent banking, which is backed by new age technology like maybe artificial intelligence or robotic process automation, blockchains and big data and so on. And what is going to next, right? So that is also another question. Typically, some of those risk-taking banks do a lot of research. Say, example, Citibanks, HSBC, we keep hearing some of those news, right? Like DBS Bank is now on a sandbox, which is a metaverse. They have, and some bank has opened an ATM in the metaverse, right? You can go there and take out your cash, right? Or HSBC has bought some land on a sandbox. So it's like your interfaces are changing. So earlier it was a physical brick and mortar interface, which has now gone to the laptops, computers, and then mobile, and then these days within mobile also from QWERTY to immersive like voice interface. So every technology brings another technology to survive, right? And if I talk about traditional, digital, intelligent, tomorrow's autonomous banking, every banking layer is depend upon the previous one. You will not find any bank which is altogether digital first bank, right? Exceptionally, some of those foreign bank like Atom Bank or there are some more who are without branches, right? Atom Bank is without branch, that's how it is. But while we do this, all these journey, it's very, very important for us. Why are we going ahead with these new technologies? So I open up this panel discussion with all of our friends. So we have eminent panel from bank and a startup fintech also. So if you can just introduce in one line and talk about which are those techs are really relevant to sustain banking or any of your industry. And then we'll open up for the next level of questions. We'll start with Mr. Sumoth, who is from a Federal Bank. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Prasanna, for that introduction. As you correctly mentioned, when you said about this moving to digital banking and all, I remember maybe in 80s, maybe the seniors may be knowing, there was a caption of Tata Steel, Ispat bhi hum banate hain. Like that now banks are telling, we also do traditional banking. Because it's almost goes to the digital banking era. And you mentioned about the evolution from branch banking to net banking to mobile banking and all. So that I'm not going into that. So a lot of new technologies are in the BFSI industry. If you take AI, ML, deep learning, RPS. So maybe I'll just stick on to two areas maybe to start with, which actually revolutionized the industry actually. One is AI, of course. Second is API banking. API banking, if you look, basically API banking is nothing but a file transfers or transfer of data. So we started from file transfer through Excel files, text files, then we moved to host-to-host connectivity. From there, now it's API banking. Actually, truly, if you are telling, API banking completely revolutionized, or we can say it's opened up the entire, if I take bank as an example, it opened up the entire bank ecosystem to the partners or the fintech. And Federal Bank, you know, we are one of the prominent players in the fintech partnership business. So we have got around more than 300 plus APIs available in the API banking stack. And we are also opened a sandbox. So anybody can try these APIs and work, see how it is working and all. And basically this completely opened up innovations in the BFSI industry. Because on the core, there's a bank in the back who takes care of all the regulations, compliance related things, risk management, all those things. But on the front end, if somebody wants to give an exact maybe customer experience, they can use these APIs in the back end and create some sort of a, I will say, exotic customer experience in their apps or portals. So that's one of the major technology which is opened up in the system. Then if you come to AI, I'm taking one more minute on AI side. A lot of deliberations are going on how AI can do so many things. Again, I'll take only two examples of AI, how it can be revolutionizing. In the morning session, panel discussion also, they were telling about this fraud risk management, AI using fraud risk. Now the thing is, AI is being used to analyze the customer behavior and analyze the study, how the customer transacts, and if there's a small variation which is seen. Of course, it can throw out some sort of an alerts or this thing to that. Look, this particular customer's behavior is a little bit different. If you can want to dig deep into this analyze and find out, that's one use case on the fraud risk management. Second, one AI which most of them not talked, which Federal Bank has adopted is for our recruitment. Actually, one of the first bank in the country, we call it Fed Recruit. We use AI extensively in the recruitment process. Actually, the human interview comes only at the last stage. So even by analyzing the resume, it's not a one-sided resume. We are analyzing in 360 degree using his the candidate's traits, personality traits. Then there's a robotic interview happens where the AI analyzes his facial expressions, body language. Then there is a sort of a gamification we have introduced through which we are examining how the candidate responds to the some sort of a models, some sort of a simulations, how the candidate behaves in a certain scenario. Based on that, some AI score is evaluated. And automatically, there is no, there is no partiality. Since it's a completely automated process, there is no other human intervention. Finally, one shortlist has been made. That is getting analyzed by the personal interview. So that's a one use case I am seeing now. A lot of companies are adopting for the technology for the recruitment. So maybe I'll just tick on to this point to start with. Thanks.
I think excellent views, Sumoth. So in a nutshell, Federal Bank is adopting heavy duty, lot of technologies altogether. In my view, digital transformation around technologies could be divided into three different areas, right? So it could be a front area, which is typically backed by all the front technologies like mobile technology or IoT technology or web technology, which is on front, where customer interface is there, contact center. You spoke about how employees are coming or potential employees are coming. So it's all about the front. And then you spoke about AI or API banking. So API banking comes in between, which plugs in all the front interface to the backend. So backend could be your databases or big data or AI or tomorrow's blockchain and so on. So good to see that how you are evolving your banking models with the API. I think API itself is a vast topic, and if you see, I think most of the banking which is happening, at least on payment, which is typically driven by partners, fintech partners. We have a lot of examples, like Google is one path-breaking example where at least for retail payments, they have done a lot of magical things. So that is happened because of APIs, and I'm good to see that Federal Bank is, I think, one of the top bank as far as the digital payment is a concern through partners. I think good to see how technology can really help for an entity to become a very great entity. Now, coming back, Sudarshan, I think you have seen how a bank has really adopted various technologies. So how LIC is looking at, because LIC is one of those old organizations, right? And as far as the insurance is concerned, we always see LIC as a prime entity. And when we say bank, we used to say earlier SBI, but there are now many more banks. And there are a lot of new, I would say, competitions coming as far as insurance is concerned. But LIC, whenever you talk about LIC, is a trust, right? And so how you still prevail that trust, and what is the role of a technology at LIC, which is really helping to be in the race? Yeah.
Okay, that was nice. Good afternoon, everyone. To be more specific, like yeah, definitely I represent the LIC mutual fund, the investment management team, not the parent insurance company. But yes, technology remains the same. Like what is matter or the important aspect over here is actually any verticals in the BFSI, our aim or the goal is to serve the end customers. Right. So if our technology is not at that par where we can contribute something, value additions to the customers, what like Sumoth has already said that we have already adopted the AI, ML. There's a lot of technologies, data, analytics, IoT, everything is there in the picture. But the journey of the end users, the expectations, because today if you see, the end user is not product oriented, they are solution oriented. If our technology, our product, what we are going to deploy in the organization, it's not going to give that kind of an output to the end user, you're going to lose of that customers. So when we say that key, yes, adoption of a technology at how mutual fund or the investment management startups, our interactions to the end customers are very less compared to any other verticals in the BFSI. Right. Okay, so but because we are directly routed via the distributor channels or basically we work in two different formats of a data. What we work is the formatted data, and the RTA who manages our data, they works on the raw data. So what our aim or what our challenges is like to how we can drive, like by deploying or implementing the CRM solutions within the organization to understand the complete journey, how the transaction happens, what it leads to, what is the need of the customers and all. And that drives us to take up a new challenge in terms of deploying a new technology and plus serving the customers.
Yeah, so are there any use cases where you have seen at LIC Mutual, yeah, this is a technology now really helping LIC Mutual and we can't live without that? Is there any example?
An example now, like recently we have started working upon building up an entire CRM channel. Okay, so that is where we are trying to get the big chunk of data in a raw formatted and trying to figure out what kind of exactly the queries are being generated in that data, what are the numbers of expectations from the end users and all, and plus diverting it to the proper channels into, or say the proper functions like being it a marketing or a sales or coming to the technology. Because definitely whatever we are serving, it's the end users data. And at the end point of the time, regulations will always be strict over to ensure that the data is not being compromised at any given point in time. So the product solutions, what we are working upon, it's always trying to take care of the entire entity and the entire cycle, start from onboarding the end users till retaining that customers, because that becomes a more challenging part. It's not that we have maintained, onboarded the end user and then just forget it. We have to ensure that we engage with them over the period of time. So that's what the cycle helps us.
Yeah, I think wonderful. I think we, you said regulatory angle. We'll touch upon that aspect. And the data is very, very important these days, right? So data resides in the back end, and if you're really not utilizing your data, I think you don't have a future. That is how is the thing for every bank, because customer used to do unidirectional banking so far. He used to come to you, to come to the branch or come to a mobile app or come to a internet banking. But now most of these entities are going back to the customer, right? Most of you must have received one SMS. Oh, this is something already available for you, right? Your loan is already ready, or some call will come to you. This is, you just have to say yes or no. Depends upon that you will get loan or not. So that is the power of data, right? I think many banks are now leveraging and the data and giving back those right notification to the customer, so that the banking or BFSI becomes bidirectional. So that is how our customer, wherever it will go, he'll find banking and insurance and many other services. So I think now the lending, which is a very, very important part of a banking, and I think we have a friend from a very good fintech. So just introduce yourself and see how you got this idea, right? So peer-to-peer lending, which was never into existence early 2000 or 90s. But there is a lot of gap, right, for lending also, SME lending. Even retail also, they look at immediate lending facilities availability. If you go to the bank, typically it's the same long process, right? So how do we look at this whole adoption of a lending, and how you started your journey? And primarily then we'll talk about which are those technology you are leveraging on. Yeah.
So thank you, Prasanna. First of all, I think it's quite easy and obvious to spot a startup guy as opposed to the established banks and financial institutions leaders. We always come in a casual attire, you know. All right. So I represent Lending Club. I am one of the co-founders, and I look after technology and product at Lending Club. Lending Club was established in 2015 in order to ideate and establish the idea of P2P lending, peer-to-peer lending in India. So when we launched in 2015, we had a different set of problems, right? Wherein we reached out to the end customers to make them believe that you could actually come to a portal either to borrow or lend, right? So we got two different kind of reactions from each of these customer sets when we were there in 2015, right? So there, when we reached out to borrowers, they were so acquainted to having an individual visit them and fill up a long form in order to get a loan sanctioned for them. So they were not ready to adopt the idea that you could actually complete your application online. So we had a fair amount of struggles in making them believe that this could happen. And contrary to that, when we went to investors, saying that, hey, you could actually deposit your money here, and in return, you could make a return of, let's say, about 10 to 12%. And that came as a shocker. How can I give someone money without somebody representing me or without a face? That was kind of a psyche back then in 2015. So it was a huge mindset shift for us that we had to establish in due course of time. Took us about 2 years or almost 2 years to make this market believe that this is something that could happen over a digital platform, right? As opposed to somebody actually coming and visiting you in order to just do a financial transaction. And thankfully, we got good support of the regulatory bodies, the RBI, in order to make sure that this platform or this idea does get a recognition, because it is definitely required in the Indian ecosystem. We all know that our family members or our known ones are there in the market taking money from money lenders at quite a hefty rate, right? So that had to be brought to a formal economy, and that's something that we're doing through peer-to-peer lending.
Yeah, I think so. So now there is one question, right? So technology adoption. Now, if I ask you, you will say we are already on right technology. We are on cloud first. We are on API first. We have AI. We have big data. If you ask blockchain, let's do that. So that's quite a lot of opportunities are there with new age companies, right? Even new age banks also. So now, if you look at banking ecosystem, there are various types of banks. We have PSU banks with a lot of legacy of processes, technologies, and people also. And we have new age banks. There are some challenger banks like small finance bank. There are payments bank, cooperative banks, right? And there are fintechs. But ultimately, customer is the same, right? Customer is the same who will do the banking with some fintech or a bank. And they are looking for a very niche services. Either they look for a CASA or payment services or lending and so on. So how do we see this whole game for customers? So there comes regulator and plays a major role to bring lot of platforms. Say example, earlier we used to do one-on-one NFT or we used to go to the bank branch and fill in that form and wait for 3 hours or 4 hours or next day for a fund transfer, which is not typically happening like a WhatsApp speed, right? You just text and you can send a, so, and that's how the regulator came in with their, say example, RBI came in and in their vision statement, they said we'll do UPI, we'll do CBDC now they are talking about, right? So what is the role of a regulator? Do you see that sometimes a regulator is doing hindrance or a challenge for adoption of technology, or is it already supported? The question is for all, whoever wants to take, yeah.
I think I'll be the right person to start it, right? So I can float it on to both of you guys.
Recently you have seen, right, RBI has announced some guideline around lending, right? How do we do better lending? So I think some fintechs are happy, some fintechs are not happy, but customer is going to be happy for sure. Yeah.
Right. So Prasanna, in your earlier mention, you told me, told everyone that there are good avenues available for SME lending. Today, you get a loan almost on a real-time basis. But if you look at the unserved and the underserved segment, or for the people with a salary of between, let's say, 30,000, 40,000, or below 50,000 per month, right? It is not yet so easy, right? So this is something that we were trying to innovate, and along with this, there were a lot of startups that were doing these kind of innovations, right? Some went ahead of the way. We tried to bend here and there, to make sure that the customer's need is met. They tried challenging the existing financial ecosystem, to make sure that first a customer need is created, right? Until UPI was there, nobody thought that UPI is need of the hour. But once UPI is in the market, once Aadhaar is in the market, everybody wants that facility, right? Just like that, we created this ecosystem. We, as in all the startups that came in, right, created this ecosystem wherein you could come and actually entertain a customer, fulfill their financial need within a fraction of seconds at the click of your smartphone or your digital device without having to visit a bank or a financial institution. So that's where a lot of things happen in a good way. A lot of things required a little bit of moderation, and that's where regulatory bodies like RBI and SEBIs kicked in, right? And I believe they're just playing a role of parents in any society, right? Wherein you have a child growing, and it could go in both ways, right? Good path or bad path, right? You have to make sure that they are aligned in the good path, and you have to make sure that they get right kind of company, right kind of growth, right kind of guidance in order to make sure that whatever they are learning or whatever they are growing themselves to become is well nurtured and in the right direction. So same thing is happening with us, right? So we're doing a lot of things. We're trying to try out this and that, right? Wherever we thought, hey, maybe this is one area which is still gray. Maybe we could explore whether this is, this can be made white or black whatsoever, right? We consulted with the regulatory bodies, and just like us, many other startups also did the same. And to which a lot of regulations have come in between to make sure that right kind of players are in the market. No players should exploit the customers. Like there were many apps and many, not to say it loudly, but yes, of course, there were a lot of Chinese companies exploiting the fintech ecosystem that RBI was trying to, let the economy run in a smooth way in order to grow. Today, because there is a demand of lending, the economy is growing upward, right? Yeah. But to make sure that it grows in the right direction, right kind of regulations has to be there, right? We remember incidents of 2005 wherein there were many harsh steps taken, to make sure that collection does not go haywire. Yeah. The similar thing is happening now. So regulators are playing excellent roles. Doesn't matter if it is digital lending or, prepaid instruments related regulations, right? Those are all in favor of the right kind of player trying to grow in the right directions. And I think it has helped both startups like us and innovative banks like Fed banks and all other players in the ecosystem. So I am quite positive and hopeful the way, regulators are, playing their roles in the economy.
I think wonderful. And just to add, just to support you rather, we are blessed with a very good regulators. You say about RBI or SEBI or IRD or any other regulator, they come up with any regulation after a deep dive study, and then only it announce, and they don't stop there. They always come up with another guideline on top of that. Say example, video KYC came in, but they found some gaps. They again came up with some other guideline, eKYC plus video KYC. And UPI came in, and we have seen the rise of UPI and multiple versions of, say, adoption of authentication against card. So I think it keeps on coming. And if you see before 2014 and after 2014, you will see lot of regulations are coming and which are really helping ecosystem like India. And other countries are now looking at how do we adopt Aadhaar or UPI or ONDC or there are many more things are coming like account aggregator. Once account aggregator is there, I think you will see it all path breaking. You will see entities from SEBI, RBI, RD, everybody will take care of that single customer, right? So I think Sumoth wanted to give some input.
Yeah, I just add one more point what Adi was telling. Since Prasanna, you mentioned about the customer adoption service regulator. So I'm seeing these are two sides of the coin. Basically, if you look at what a customer wants from digital banking, basically two things. One, convenience. Second, security. If both are there, of course, customer will naturally get adopted to the digital banking or banking technology. So convenience is the factor which the industry players has to give to the customer, whether it's banks or mutual funds or insurance companies. On the security side, of course, industry players have a role, but regulators have a wider role. So especially if you're taking banking sector, I'll say RBI is playing a fantastic role in the country to ensure that innovation as well as regulation happens in a seamless manner. I always quote the example of introduction of this two-factor authentication for online card transactions. When it was introduced in 2010-11, there's a large hue and cry. This will completely erase the online card transaction. But what happened is the reverse. Customer had the confidence that, okay, now I can safely do my online card transactions, that there's always a two-factor authentication. So the transaction got multifold. That's one thing which regulators always done. And as you mentioned, account aggregator, all these are regulators' innovations. And last year, actually, Reserve Bank has formed a RB Innovation Hub. That was exclusively formed to create innovation in the BFSI industry. So that's again an initiative by the regulator. And Federal Bank, we are also doing some pilots with RB Innovation Hub, whether in the trade finance area, whether in financial inclusion area. So they are we supporting like anything for innovation on one side, but if they see that there is some sort of a leeway or some sort of gaps in some of the things, of course, they immediately come and put some regulation, but on a longer term, I always believe this is for the betterment of the industry. Even the latest digital lending guidelines, maybe you have some different views, I know, but of course, on a longer term, you say the digital lending will increase multifold in the days to come. That I'm very sure of that. Thanks.
Yeah, I think wonderful. You spoke about RBI Innovation Hub, which works around three areas: impact, innovation, and the inclusion. It covers almost all what India is looking at, and they are not there just to start a company, but as you rightly said, trade finance or interoperability of the blockchain kind of a technology, AI, they are experimenting and making it possible, and as well as involving a larger RBI regulator, and certainly they will be, I think, center stage to adoption of any of those emerging techs. Decentralized KYC, which IDRBT is working along with the MeitY and some more banks. So I think a lot of tech adoption is happening, right? But when you go back, for every organization has its own orbit. From orbit 1 to 2, when you have to move, it's not only adoption of technology, but it's a people mindset, right? Which people you have within your organization, and which is that process you are going to change with the help of new technologies. And while doing that, what compliance, regulation, security aspects. So sir, you have to guide us. If you have to adopt any new technologies, what is that you need to take care? I think you are Chief Information Security at LIC Mutual. So you can give that guidance. Do we need to say yes immediately, or we should have a cautious approach to really adopt any of those emerging technologies? Yeah.
Definitely our answer should not be no, but not yes also at the same time, because deep analysis is actually required to understand the product, what kind of a product it is and how it's going to help. Just to go back, when we talk about the regulations also, when I started my career, I used to think that why the company required the certifications. Yeah. Right. I was always in the mindset that it's an individual required certifications to be done on the technological front, why the company need. But yes, definitely today when we are sitting on these positions or understanding that why it has been required, so the ultimate aim or the objective of the regulators is to ensure that the end customers are being taken care, basically the data. Right, so when we adopt a new technology, we have to follow certain checksums, data points that, okay, if we are going to deploy publishing a website for that matter, right, what my website is going to expose the data, what kind of a navigation it's going to have, what kind of ease of usability it's going to have at the same time, what kind of a data I'm going to capture from the user. And from the security perspective, definitely when the regulator comes to the picture, they always ensure that you follow certain guidelines. Like we have the security guidelines which is followed across globally. Then we have the guidelines built by following some frameworks by SEBI or say RBI. following that guidelines, we ensure that, okay, fine, this product is going to cater this requirement for the user or not, and then what kind of audit assessments has to be done, risk assessment has to be done. All this analysis is being actually worked out, basically in nutshell, if I say, the POC to be carried out. Once the POC has been done, it's been rolled out on the floor for a UAT test and all, and when the user is actually out, when he's out of the organization, he's just a normal end use customer, right? So his answers or his outputs is actually going to give us a feedback, which will try help us to enhance the product or add some other solutions, so that the solution or the platforms which we are going to deliver to the customer is taken care as per the guidelines what is coming from the RBI or the SEBI for that matter.
I think that's a way to adopt any of those new technologies. Say example, you are adopting a blockchain technologies, work with a smaller company or larger company, take a small use case, or even it is AI also, take a small use case, create a people around that, some skill within your organization around that, who could drive that use case from a small startup use case to the scale up use case, and then drive it with the regulator or other companies based upon what type of use case. I think you must be knowing, right? Trade finance, the one which RBI Innovation Hub or EBIC is driving with within some banks. Now they will open it from 4 banks to now they will open it to many other banks. So I think that is how it is mentioned in the public information. And similarly, even fintechs also now looking at how do we adopt many more new technologies, right? So one question to you immediately came in my mind, right? How do you take care of a customer experience? How do you take care of whether your same customer is with you today, or is it going to be same tomorrow? Or do it manually, or you use any other technology to really take care of that customer? Yeah.
Okay, so there's this saying that we often tell to our business team members, if any business team member comes to me and asks me, hey, can this be solved by technology? The answer always is yes, it can be. So first, that gives a huge mindset, shift. It's a completely different kind of a thought process that is required. Yesterday only, so I have a colleague working with me at CXO level who has come with a vast experience from good banks. But then he came with a very funny question wherein he asked me whether if there's an automated way to capture responses of a customer that they are providing in an Excel sheet. Okay, this is nothing. It just requires a scripting. He was surprised to learn that, hey, this is also something that's possible. See, in technology, that's the beauty of it. Right? You know how to interact with the computer, and you know that you're receiving a digital information. You just have to transform it to your need based on how you want to consume it, how you want to build insight around it, and how you want to make the next use case based on the data information that you have in place. So technology has always been the the leader in our industry that defines the way we function. With regards to customer engagement, right from day zero, right? So today, if a customer has to come to my portal, they can come to my database simply through our mobile app or our websites, right? It's available in both Play Store and App Store. So first, onboarding is completely digital. Second, let's say if the customer needed to be reminded of certain transactions, it's completely digital through targeting, retargeting, using marketing automation tool, right? Customer engagement tool, a good amount of qualitative CRMs with AI-backed informations wherein I know the intent of a customer, I know where the customer might be stuck, I know what the customer might be thinking about with regards to making the next decision, and I simply pitch them about on what is the next action that they can take in the portal to make sure that they are getting a good customer experience, or the purpose that they are coming here to my platform with is met. Now, when they have to reach out to us, even in that case also, there are 2 ways through which they interact with us. Right? First is directly through the customer support portals, right, wherein we have automation bots in place to make sure that they get a human-like interactions while they are interacting with the portal, right? Because to interact with a human, it takes a lot of time. Today, if 10 customer calls me simultaneously to understand how is their portfolio performing, an executive can hardly take care of 1 or 2 customers at a time. But because I have good kind of automations in place, they all can interact with those customers, fetch out all of their information whenever needed, and then provide it to them simultaneously, making sure that it is spoken to them in their language to make them feel comfortable, to make them feel reliant about the interactions. Post that, sometimes it may happen that there comes a question wherein they may not be satisfied with the way the interactions is establishing. In that case, we have made sure that there is a mechanism to redirect that AI to a human right then and there, because see, it takes time for AI to mature, just like a human baby, right? So that is also there. Today, we can call n number of customers simultaneously through NLP-based voice calling, right? So those are also in place. There are chances. So these are all on the happy side of it, right?
Yeah.
There are tricky sides of it also, wherein a borrower comes.
I was
tries
about to ask you, right?
Right.
If you really always talk about technology, there are some set of a customer or there are some generations, they may not like a technology always, right? They need some kind of a human touch or yeah. Go ahead.
Like I said, so there are human interfaces available, right? We understand where this customer needs a human interactions, and there we keep a score of that customer, and we make sure the interaction is molded accordingly or trained accordingly to make sure that the customer is entertained in the place. But if not, we do bring human learning there, and from there, whatever the human interaction is, that is fed onto our AI-based system, right? Our data lakes feeds in to the relevant engines and make sure that the interaction is established further in the next interactions that the customer does with our system. But I was talking about the fraud part of it, wherein a human will always surpass a machine, because AI, it's an artificial intelligence. Compared to natural intelligence, it is definitely going to be behind. It might be expert in one direction. So there comes customers especially on the loan side, wherein they try to play smart with their KYC, right? They try to play smart with their documents, right? That's where things starts getting quite funny and quite interesting. You'd love to see how you can solve these kind of use cases. So we have had instances wherein if you just look at a document, you will not be able to tell, hey, this is a PAN that has been duped. Or you will not be able to look at the bank statement and tell, hey, this is a bank statement that is genuinely coming from a bank portal. In that case also, we've been able to crack many interesting use cases, right?
That's how technology is helping.
Absolutely.
You spoke about complete customer journey. For onboarding, technology is there. For engaging, technology is there. And moreover, for servicing also technology is there, and to keep an interest of customer with you, technology is there, right? So I think it's very easy for any bank or any company to adopt technologies once it is adopted, right? But Sumoth, I think you may agree with me. If you wanted to adopt API banking or some kind of a new architecture, right? How do you really, are there any challenges? Of course, yes, right? So how organizations like banks are really looking at this curve to adopt for new age technologies, and once they adopt one technology, it makes easy to adopt many more other technology. But you could have seen in your journey the first crack, right? How it,
adoption to the customers, you are asking, or about the
other side, for a banking side, right? So say example, today maybe if I say let's adopt cloud, we may not say yes immediately. But for sure, we have to be there, because there is another wave, fintechs, they are already on cloud. So mutually, they are on the cloud architecture, right? But eventually, for a same customer, you need to make sure that everything is on a same ecosystem. API banking was not there. Now it is there, and Federal Bank is spearheading that, right? So when it was not there, and when it is there, right? So there is many more challenges, decision making, buying from board, investment, and some kind of, you have to do a lot of activities to justify ROIs and so on, yeah.
I got it. So basically, good question. So the core philosophy for Federal Bank, any organization, it should be it should not be adoption of technology just for the sake of adoption of technology.
Absolutely.
That will not work. Basically, there should be, of course, we can experiment in certain cases, as you're telling about some POCs for certain cases, but if you want to have wider adoption of a particular technology, there should be compelling use case in front. We can do some POCs with, say, limited number of customers or limited partners, of course, but my personal opinion, we should leave it that if that is not a scalable one. Ultimately, ROI matters.
Absolutely.
So if we have a clear roadmap, maybe we will not get returns maybe 3 months, 6 months down there. Maybe it's a long-term investment. But if you are sure that maybe we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, maybe 2 years down the line, of course, then we can adopt such technologies. Maybe we have to create a smaller team first, take 1 or 2 clients or 1 or 2 subset of customers, experiment with them. Basically, we call it as there's a concept called leadership, leadership. Learn, relearn, learn, unlearn, relearn. Yeah. Like that, some new technologies has to be like that. We have to first learn, maybe we have to unlearn some of the things, we have to relearn with maybe technology is ever evolving. So in between, some new technologies may come in the same thing. As you mentioned, AP banking was not there earlier. maybe last 2 years only this get that much popularity.
Excellent.
So that's always a learning curve. But of course, if you talk to the top management, there should be compelling use cases to show to top management to get some investment for that. But if you're convinced that this has a large number of customers, takers for this, of course, it will be there. So that's my opinion on that.
I think great. I think we have reached to that lot of rounds of questions and answer, right? So any questions from audiences? Anybody wants to just ask any of those questions? Raise your hand and yeah. Yeah, you can. I think somebody can help with the mic.
Some mic.
Please raise your hand.
Hi, afternoon. My question is, you talked about rural and underserved people or the mass population, right? So when we talk about lending and especially digital lending, these are the people who we will not find from bureau or they don't have a match and all those things. So how do we leverage technology in that case for this mass agenda? That's my question.
Thank you. Interesting question. So basically, there are multiple ways that we've tried. See, again, like I said, we are a startup, right? We'll definitely try to understand the traditional way of assessment, but we'll not limit ourselves to that. So for the same, like recently RBI has mentioned about data protection, there are discussions going on with regards to data protection bill and then customer data. There are a lot of interactions happening between the regulatory bodies with regards to customer data, right? So what they say is you can leverage customer data, but make sure that you're not exploiting it, you're not over leveraging it so as to make sure that the customer, so as to make the customer feel insecure. So we are quite cautious or calculative about that, but with that being said, you have to build an alternate score in order to make sure that you are understanding the customer psyche, customer's behavior. There are people out there, even in today's date, that Lending Club is serving, right? So we have disbursed a loan of even 10,000 rupees to some family individual who is technically a delivery guy, right? A delivery guy's salary is quite difficult to assess. But the reason for this loan was to fulfill his family need with regards to a recent wedding that was coming in the family. So he wanted to contribute. We did a good analysis of it. We tried to understand the kind of business that he is into, the kind of job that he is into, the loan that is being disbursed to, in which area the loan is being disbursed to, right? They have bank account details. They do have digital footprints wherein we have a trend that we can establish from their daily interactions with the mobile apps, right? With regards to how their financials are, right? You can see salary is not the criteria, but your inflow and outflow can definitely tell you much more about the way a customer manages their finance. So that is another part of it. Third is with regards to, you definitely need a surrogated verification wherein I have to talk to the entities in which this person is working or employed it. So that makes me easier to assess that kind of customers, right? So this is just one use case. There are many such use cases wherein there are farmers or there are distributors, retail distributors in the remotes of India, right, who try to do their businesses in somewhere or other and do manage the cash flow in a digital, basically in bank's account, right? They do create some digital footprints. I think for those kind of customers, you do need to have access to alternate data that they provide. It could even be social scoring, or it could even be the kind of applications they use. And there are a lot of other information that you can build out of even their style of using their mobile devices, right? So this is how we majorly try to build a score around it, so which we call as alternate score. But we have to make sure that we are not overusing the information. So whenever we need such kind of permissions, we do prompt the user, and whenever you're not using it, we have to make sure that we are disabling and informing the customer that, hey, we are not tracking this. Or whenever we are tracking, we have to make sure that we are informing the customer that, hey, we are tracking this behavior for this intended use.
So I just add one point, since the question relates to the financial inclusion and rural. Actually, in Federal Bank, we are doing a classic case in Gujarat. Gujarat is famous for its dairy milk farmers and all. So along with Amul, and there's a fintech firm, we are doing the entire digitization of the milk procurement cycle, from the farmers to the societies to the Amul. So earlier, it was full of cash-based payments. So now it's completely digitized, and from that digitized data, of course, a lot of data, as Dipesh was telling, data is there, from which we can assess the particular farmer's turnover, his land holdings and all. We can extend, we are extending credit. So data is available, only we should find how to utilize that data in a what is a realistic form to maybe extend credit or some other support to those farmers. So that's a classic case. Now more than 3,000 farmers are benefited from that. The entire procurement is digitized. Another case which we are doing a pilot with RB Innovation Hub, maybe next week it will be officially announced. In the earlier morning panel discussion also, there's a discussion about digitization of land records. Yeah. So in Tamil Nadu, actually that has already happened. So based on that, we are exploring whether we can end-to-end digitization, based on the land, whether we can extend credit to those lower segments of the society. So innovations are happening in the industry. Only thing we need to analyze the data, what are data is available, and of course surrogate data which is available. Based on that, we can create models and do the lending.
Moreover, it's now mandate for banks also. Banks also to do priority sector lending and in the lending in that area. And I think 18% of your lending has to be priority sector lending, where you have to give maybe manually look at the mortgages and so on. So there are many means, but I think this portion is evolving. There is a lot of a gap, as you rightly said, to be done, right? But I think the way you see the next generation, they know how to go for the lending side. Even SME have a lot of other options apart from banks who are providing loans. I think innovations by Lending, what they are doing, or peer-to-peer lending, it's all fueling. And moreover, it's a collaboration impact. Bank plus fintechs are doing much more greater. That is why this digital lending guideline came in to streamline this whole structure, right? Before that, I think if you see the most of the companies who are giving lending, like almost 60 to 70% don't have a lending license or a credit license, right? Now this will resolve all the challenge. What is that happen? Like if you give the lending, most of the customers will go NPA. They don't have another means to take the money back, right? But through this, it will be quite a transparent ecosystem around wherever we are doing. I think there are many more other ecosystems are coming. Account aggregator, which will open up lot of opportunities for SME lending. A few of the banks already done pilots. I think once SB or larger banks will come, it will be like an UPI effect. We just have to wait and watch. Or ONDC down the line 3 to 4 years will bring almost all buyers, suppliers and relevant to co-lending or invoice discounting, that kind of opportunity. I think compared to last 10 years, next 10 years are going to be very intelligent banking kind of era. And to support that, required communication, required telecommunication, required 5G, that is also coming up, right? So we'll not say that technology is not available in those villages, but that is also coming up with its own speed. Today we talk about 5G adoption, our top management, PM talks about 6G. So I think, and if you look at the current budget, which has been announced in 2022 February, it talks a lot about digital and adoption of new technologies. And primarily they have emphasized banks to do, I think, every village or every citizen on banking. So how do we do that, right? Can we create an infrastructure? They are working on it. Can we create new kind of pipelines? They are there. We are talking about digital rupee, which will bring on many more other instruments apart from CASA or mutual fund, which we have seen. So I think it's a journey, and it's a beautiful journey, and it's a collaboration journey with banks, fintechs coming together, and partners are supporting. And that is why we are blessed with a good regulator. They understand the power of this collaboration and various new platforms. Imagine without interoperable ATM or a UPI or account aggregator, life will have been not great today. But you will see many more such, so that other countries, other banks look at, this is one of the examples, this is how finance ecosystem should be built. So thank you so much, panelists, for coming in here and given a right path for importance of technology, challenges around that, use cases around that. So I enjoyed this whole discussion. Thank you so much, organizer, for bringing this topic for the discussion.
Thank you.